Hello, everyone, and welcome to Making Decisions. Today's webinar is about making major life decisions. So it's not about what you're going to have for dinner or something like that. It's the really big decisions that we make in our lives. So if you're pondering a big change, then this webinar is for you. So if you are joining me on the replay, you can ask any questions wherever you see it posted. So if you're on my newsletter, I'll give you a chance there. You can answer you can just reply to my newsletter and it will come into my email. If you're joining from Facebook, you can post your questions there. Usually people watch these on the replay, but if you are here live, at the end, I'll be taking questions and you'll have an opportunity to be coached around something that is bothering you, like a big decision. So like I said, if you're pondering a big change, now that life is sort of post-virus and starting to get back to normal, I have an exercise for you that can help. And it's called Cartesian Questions. Now, they're called this because they are the 4 questions that were developed by the French philosopher, mathematician, and writer, René Descartes. And he famously said, "I think, therefore I am." Thinking about your answers to these questions will help you get a new perspective and on your possible outcomes. So now that we have a vaccine for COVID, we can start to look to the future. People are starting to think about how their lives can be different going forward. Perhaps you've gotten a taste of working remotely or homeschooling, or spending more time with your family, or less time in your car commuting, or maybe even you started cooking every day at home. So you might really like some of these changes, and some of them you probably can't wait until they end, right? Like homeschooling. Life has changed for better or for worse. The world has changed, and perhaps we want some of these new aspects to stay that way, and maybe some we don't. So, many people, more than 800,000 people, have lost their lives in the United States due to COVID. So that number continues to grow. But now that we have a vaccine, we're starting to see that this plague is coming to an end, hopefully. So it's making people really think about the fragility of life. And, we're not guaranteed to have 100 years on this planet. So they don't want to waste any more time doing what doesn't bring them joy. But it can be hard to make those big kinds of decisions. So that's why I created this webinar, to give you a system for mapping out all the pros and cons and everything in between about whatever big change is that you may be contemplating. So hopefully you can see my screen here. Here's a quote from Tony Robbins. It says, "It is in your moments of decision that your destiny has happened." So our life is just a series of choices. Do I do this? Do I do that? So here are some of the big changes that some people may be contemplating. So some people are contemplating, or some people I talk to, they don't want to go back to working in an office environment. They like the freedom of working remotely, and they realize that they don't need to sit in an office all day to be productive. Some people are contemplating leaving their jobs altogether. They don't want to be employees anymore. They want to start their own business. So we all need money to survive, but do we need to be earning it in the same way that we always have? So some people are feeling a strain in their relationships. I've heard this from quite a few people after spending so much time at home together with their partner. We all need human connection to be happy, but some people are wondering if they really want to spend the rest of their lives with this current partner. Or perhaps you want to start a side hustle, or leave your job altogether, or maybe have a child, or you want to start a business, or maybe go back to school, or you're contemplating a divorce. Whatever it is that is tickling your mind, these questions can help you look at a problem from all angles. So these are the Cartesian questions. There are 4 questions that seem very similar on the surface, but they're really quite different. So let me give you an example first. I have a coaching client who was debating a major career decision that would make him move him and his family to another city. So he's a family man, so he knew that this decision was not just going to affect him, it was going to affect everyone in the family. When he was younger and he was unattached, these kind of decisions were a little bit easier, but now he has a wife and he has kids, he has a dog, and there's a lot of uprooting that'll happen. So decisions, at that point in your life are a little bit more difficult to make. So I gave him this set of questions so he can really think clearly about how this decision is going to affect his family. So the questions are, what will happen if I do? What will happen if I don't? But then these are the tricky ones. What won't happen if I do? And what won't happen if I don't? So if you're debating a major decision, these 4 questions will help you look at a problem from all the angles. And they seem similar, like I said, but they can give you very different answers. So when we're contemplating any action, we naturally look ahead to determine what the outcome will be. We dream about what can happen. We worry about what can happen. We hope. We try to predict the future. We get so wrapped up in thinking of what will happen as a result of this decision. We don't always think about what won't happen as a result. So to help you choose your action, ask yourself these 4 questions. And we're going to go through some hypothetical examples together so that you can see how it works. And then we'll talk about what you can do after you do go through this exercise of all these questions. Now, tomorrow I'll send you, I'm going to bring up a worksheet in a minute of how I'd like to use these questions. And tomorrow I'll send you a link to the replay for this webinar. And I'll also send you a link where you can download a blank copy of this worksheet that I'm going to use. So you can use it for yourself. And it's just a PDF, so you can print it out as many times as you want to. So these questions, they've worked for my friend. They've worked for me on occasion too, and they can work for you. So let's go through these questions and what they each mean. So what will happen if I do? Now this helps you visualize fulfilling this goal and what it will mean to you. This question can be very motivating, or it can be a little scary, right? So what will happen if I don't? So this question helps you identify the pain points of staying as you are, and it can also be very motivating. These are the trickier questions. What won't happen if I do? So this question helps you understand what you may lose if you achieve your goal. And this could be positive or it could be negative as well. And then what won't happen if I don't? This helps you identify different perspectives and maybe some hidden feelings you have about the decision. So we're going to take a look at some examples. I'm going to share, if I can find my cursor, a different screen with you. That is the workshop. That is the workbook. So let's see. So here we go. You can see this is a worksheet that has, I'll show you the end where the blank one is. So what will happen if I do? What will happen if I don't? Has all 4 questions in a box. So you can go through. Now I've used the example of what I told my friend who was moving to a new city for a job. We're contemplating it. Let me take a sip of water. So what will happen if he does? So I just wrote down some possible things. This is where you just brainstorm the answers to these questions. So he will get to move to a new city, maybe have exciting new adventures. This job is going to bring him a lot more money. He may have to work longer hours at his new position. He's going to have to move his 401k to a new company plan or convert it to an IRA. He's going to have to find a new home and a new school for his kids. He might feel guilty about uprooting his family. He'll be leaving friends behind, possibly even family, but he may love this new place even more. And he might fail, he might succeed. These are the things that will happen that could happen if he does. Now, what are the things that could happen if he doesn't? So what will happen if I don't? His career will definitely stay in the same place. His family will go on in the same way with the same school, living in the same neighborhood, etc. He might find himself getting bored at work. He'll never know if he could have had success at that new job. He may feel like he's missing out. He may regret taking the easy route. He may be relieved that he didn't have to take the new job and go through all the hassle of moving. And his family may be happy that they don't have to leave their friends, or it's possible that his family would have had a better time in the new place as well. So start thinking about all the possibilities. Now let's go into the little trickier questions. What won't happen if I do? So if he doesn't take that job and move, he won't have, what won't happen if I do? So if he does take the job, what are the things that will no longer happen? He won't have the same relationship with his current friends. His kids won't finish out in their current school. He won't stagnate in his career because he'll be moving on. He won't have to worry as much about money because the new job offers him a lot more money. But he may not have as much time to spend with his family because he's going to be working long hours. So the final question is, what won't happen if I don't? So if he doesn't take the job, what are the things that are not going to happen? He's not going to advance his career or get the big pay raise. He's not going to have a new adventure. He may not develop as a person. He won't make more money to afford more things. He may regret not taking the chance. Sometimes we regret the things that we don't do more than the things that we do. So these are just a few examples of how you can answer that question. So I came up with some hypothetical situations that you may be contemplating, and we're going to go through the same exercise. I didn't fill them out quite as thoroughly as this one because I don't want you to be on here all day and I want you to answer your own questions. But here's the first example. It is starting a business. What if you're contemplating starting your own business? So what will happen if you do? Well, you could get rich. You might fail. You would be working for yourself. You would likely have to work more hours. You're going to have to learn new skills. You may gain the confidence of striking out on your own. You get the freedom to make your own decisions and have creative freedom. So what will happen if you don't? You will remain an employee instead of being your own boss. You may not make any more money than you are today because most people don't get rich by being an employee. You may regret not trying. You may feel unfulfilled. You may be stuck with a boss that you don't like. And you never know, the company that you work for may close or they may lay you off. You have no control over your employment. So what will happen? What won't happen if you do? Well, you definitely won't be taking the easy road. You may not have the security of a steady paycheck because it can take a while to get a business running. And you definitely will not have company health benefits. You're going to have to figure that out on your own. So either you're going to have your own benefits or go on the exchange. So what won't happen if you don't? You won't have the possibility of becoming rich because, like I said, most people are never going to get rich by being an employee. It's really business people or investors that get rich. You may not expand as a person if you don't, and you're not going to need to learn new skills. So if you're contemplating starting your own business, there are just some examples of how you can answer these questions. So I have another one here about if you're contemplating leaving a relationship. I can't tell you how many young girls I have spoken to who were stuck at home with their boyfriends. And during the pandemic, all their boyfriends wanted to do was play like with the PlayStation constantly. And they were really upset that they weren't actually spending quality time together. The person was just bored and playing games constantly. And I'm sure that like some older people were maybe, not used to spending so much time with their partner as well. So let's go through if you're contemplating leaving a relationship. So what if you do leave the relationship? You may feel a sense of freedom. You may be lonely. You may lose your financial security. So if you're married to someone who has been supporting you all this time, that's something to consider. You may have to get a job. You may be getting out of a toxic situation, which would be a plus. You may be opening yourself up to finding new relationships, and you may have a chance for self-discovery. So what happens if you don't leave the relationship? You may be miserable. You may be glad that you stuck it out in the long run. You may be holding yourself back from developing as a person. You may be staying to please others or not to hurt someone's feelings. A lot of times thinking about your children comes into questions like this. So let's go into what won't happen if you do. So you won't grow old with that person. You won't have a guaranteed +1 for social events. Sometimes that's important to people. You may not be able to support yourself that you find. You may not ultimately find true happiness looking for someone else. You may not discover yourself if you stay with that person. And you may not have children or grandchildren if you do leave. So what won't happen if you don't leave? Well, you won't move on. You're definitely not going to meet someone else. You won't upset your family because a lot of these decisions, people contemplate what everyone around them is going to think instead of just thinking about themselves. And you won't be putting yourself first. And these could be good or bad consequences. So I have one more for you that is not so heavy and serious, an example, but is a big decision nonetheless. So what if you wanted to take an expensive course or a mastermind? Now, I was just offered the opportunity to join a business mastermind, and it was $15,000. And I had to really think about is that a good investment for me? I've known people who have joined masterminds that cost up to $50,000. So I'm talking about like big, expensive courses here. So what will happen if you do take that course or to join that mastermind? So you may learn valuable skills that can help you progress more rapidly in your career. You may spend a lot of money, depending on how much it costs. You may make that money back with the knowledge that you get. You may meet a group of wonderful peers and mentors that you can continue sharing things with. You may have a miserable time and think that you wasted your money. If there's a possibility of when you join the right mastermind, you can make rapid advancements. And you may increase your results and possibly your income, depending on the type of course, exponentially. So what won't happen if you don't take the expensive course of the mastermind? You'll never know the possibilities. You will definitely save the tuition money. You may figure things out on yourself. It might take a little longer, but it's possible. Or you may never figure things out on your own. So sometimes it really does help to have some type of business mentor or a group of people that you can bounce your ideas off of. So let's talk about what won't happen if you do take the course. There's a possibility that you may not get that money back and with the knowledge that you get. So you may learn a lot of things there and really not know how to implement it. You won't stay stuck at the same level in your skills and knowledge because you're definitely going to learn something at those courses. So what won't happen if you don't? You won't advance your skills, or it may take longer to figure it out for yourself, and you won't meet people with the same goals and interests. So here's the blank sheet that I will make available for you tomorrow. Let me go back to the slideshow. There are my slides. Okay, so what should you do after you complete that exercise? So with that blank sheet that I'm going to provide for you, go through whatever problem is really niggling in your mind, if there is some major decision that you want to make, and really think about the answers to those 4 questions. But then afterwards, okay, you filled out the worksheet, then what do you do? So afterwards, you have to make your decision. So hopefully the exercise will help you clear up a lot of these questions and doubts that you've had. And it may bring up some things that you weren't considering. So like I said, we often get wrapped up in thinking about what will happen if we do something, but sometimes we forget to consider what won't happen as a result of that decision as well. So what happens if 2 of the options seem amazing? So if you do or you don't, you can see the light on either side. So in that case, you need to ask yourself why you want to do this thing. You always need to know what your why is, and your whys are usually wrapped up in your core values. So your core values are a set of beliefs that you have about who you want to be in life. And so ask yourself if your decision aligns with your core values, who do you want to be? And does that decision help you get there? And then decide how you're going to feel about that decision. So you have to be comfortable and confident with the decision that you make. That's why we're going to map out so many of these questions and look at it from every angle. And then just decide ahead of time, whatever I'm going to decide, I'm going to be okay with that. I'm not going to keep looking backwards at what if I had chosen a different decision. So you don't want to constantly be wondering what if. That serves you no purpose. And then, of course, you have to take action. So once you make the decision, you have to take action on it. And hopefully by the time you get to this point, you will be totally clear on how to proceed. So here's another quote for you by Ralph Waldo Emerson. Once you make a decision, the universe conspires to make it happen. So once you start going through this exercise and you really make a decision and you start taking action on it, it's amazing how all of a sudden the universe conspires to make things easy for you and to clear the path for you. So I'm not sure. Let me go into, stop sharing my screen. I'm not sure if any of you are on here live with me, but if you are, now will be a time to ask a question. So if you have a big decision that you are contemplating, I can go through this worksheet with you. Or if you want to, you can always, if you're watching the replay, you can always ask me your question and ask me for help on how to fill out the worksheet. So I don't see any questions coming in. I hope you found this exercise very helpful for you. And like I said, tomorrow I will send you the replay. and you can watch it again. I know we went through all these questions pretty quickly. When you're doing this spreadsheet by yourself, you're going to want to take a little time to really fill it out. I read them off very quickly, and some of the later ones, I didn't want to keep you on here forever, so I didn't fill out every possibility to answer those questions. They're just an idea of what will happen, what won't happen. I find this exercise to be very powerful. I've used it on my own. I definitely used it when I was contemplating leaving my job. When I lived back in California, I was contemplating leaving my job and coming back to the East Coast. And as you can see, I did decide to do that. But there's a lot of scary things that are involved in that decision, because leaving a job that I had for a long time, I'm leaving the financial security. I was moving back home after living on the West Coast for so long. It's going to be different weather. You know, there's so many different things that you can contemplate about what will happen and what won't happen. And one of the hard things about leaving a city like that is leaving all of my friends behind, because we do try to stay in touch, but it's just not the same. You know, so you know that things are going to change based on these decisions. So if nobody has any questions, I'm going to wrap it up for today. Thank you so much for joining me. I will send the replay out to anyone who signed up for the email notifications. I will also post it in the Facebook group. But if you're watching this from some other side channel, you can always go to DonnaDeRosa.com/events. And that's where you'll see all the upcoming webinars. And then you'll also find the replays of the old ones and all the ones I've done before. So if you want to go to that page, you'll see probably 4 or 5 of them by now that have been on there. Our next webinar is Spring Clean Your Diet, and it's all about Mediterranean lifestyle and how we can get ready for the summer. And I think that's going to be a really fun one. I did this one last year, and people really seem to enjoy it. I've updated it a little bit this year because the world has changed. Obviously, things are a little bit different, and I like to keep it fresh. So thank you so much for joining me. If you're watching this on the replay, don't forget you can write to me always at DeRosa@DonnaDeRosa.com if you have any questions. And I will see you very, very soon. Bye.